Alright, so I'm back with another video. In this video, I'm going to be going over a game I played in the 2017 US Open. I was 1950 USCF rated at the time, and I'm playing against someone that we're going to call David. He was 1600 USCF, and it's a cool game with a cool opening. So, d4, pawn to e6, c4, and bishop to b4 check. This is already a little bit unusual. Chess.com calls it the Karras defense after Paul Karras, but usually people play knight to f6 or d5 before putting the bishop out here. And I choose to go knight to d2. And the reason I do this is because if I go knight to c3, he could potentially take it and double my pawns. If I go bishop to d2, he just trades without any issues. But when you go knight to d2, I'm really threatening to go a3 and try and force him to trade off his bishop for my knight without compromising my pawn structure. So I'll get the two bishops in that case. And my opponent plays pawn to c5, pretty standard move, and I go a3. So I'm really trying to force black to take my knight on d2, but instead my opponent plays an unusual move, queen to a5. And the principled move here would be to play rook to b1, and then threaten to take this bishop. After rook to b1, black would have to play bishop takes d2, and after bishop takes d2, the queen would have to move again, and that would be pretty good for white because black is wasting a lot of time, and I'll be getting the bishop pair, but I wanted to spice things up by playing a takes b4. Black takes my rook on a1, and after this, I should probably play b takes c5, which is by far the most principled move, but instead I made an inaccuracy, knight to e4. So the main point of this move is I want to play knight to d6 check, which seems like a pretty reasonable threat because after something like knight to d6 check, the king cannot go to e7 or d8 because bishop to g5 would win the queen. So the king would have to go to f8, and then I can take his bishop on c8. So black chooses to play knight to c6, defending his bishop on c8, and also counterattacking on d4 and b4. And I kind of underestimated how good of a move this is because after after knight d6 check, king f8, b takes c5, I thought my position was pretty good, but black actually has a very good move here that unfortunately for him he missed in the game. He has one good move that gives him an advantage, and it's knight takes d4. And I completely missed this move. And in this position, I can't really take this because after queen takes c1 check, queen d1, and queen takes b2, I'm just down an exchange and down a pawn in a worse position, and I don't really want to allow that. So after something like knight takes d4, I would probably have to play e3, and then after something like knight b3, queen takes b3, and queen takes c1, I would probably have to play something like king to e2 to try and keep the queens on and keep things interesting. But this is also undesirable for me, but it's not completely losing yet. Keep in mind, if I play queen to d1, I'm just going to end up in a worse endgame here, and this would be very bad for white. So this whole sequence with knight to e4 wasn't really that good because at the end of it, with b takes c5, there's this knight takes d4 move, but he misses it and plays queen to a5 check instead, just trying to get his queen back into the game to defend. Bishop to d2, queen to d8, and knight to f3. So black plays f6 here, trying to keep my knight out of the game from targeting f7. I play pawn to b4, and he plays knight c to e7, anticipating that I'm going to play b5 anyway and kick it. I play e4 and just get a ton of pawns in the center. I have huge central space, so I'm down an exchange here, but I have the bishop pair, I have a very strong knight, and I have a lot of pawns in the center, and black is on basically all of his pieces are on the last two ranks. So I definitely have some compensation here. As you can see, the engine is giving me a 2-point advantage. My position is very comfortable, and it's very hard to play this for black. There's not a lot of space. So knight to h6 was played. I could play bishop takes h6 right away, but I played a fancier move that was definitely unnecessary. Knight to e5. And really my idea is after f takes e5, which happens in the game, I play bishop takes h6. So for black, you don't have time to play g takes h6 because then queen to f3 check comes, and the only way to stop mate on f7 is knight f5, so you have to give back another piece, and this would be pretty good for white. So instead of g takes h6, my opponent plays knight to g6, looking to block the check with knight f4. So I play queen f3, knight f4, but unfortunately here I can just play d takes e5, and this knight is going to be a goner. Once again, you don't have time to play g takes h6 because I take here and then mate is coming on f7. So in this position, my opponent plays queen to e7, and after queen takes f4 check, king g8, and then the game's pretty much over at this point. I guess the most precise line would be to play something like h4 and then maybe rook lift. But bishop g5, queen f8, queen h4, h6, bishop e7. My opponent plays g5. The queens are traded, but unfortunately, there's just not really a lot of space for black. Black's pieces can't really get out. I have him completely cramped, and I'm up 3 points of material. b6 is played. I just play bishop to e2, rook h7 hitting my bishop, bishop takes h4, b takes c5, and I play b5 because I don't want to allow black's bishop to get out, which would then allow the rook to get out. a6 is played, trying to free his pieces, but I just go b6, and this rook and this bishop just simply cannot get out of the game, or get into the game. Rook b8 is played, bishop to d8, defending the pawn, rook back to a8, bishop c7, not rushing pawn to b7, because then there could be bishop takes b7, knight takes b7, and rook to b8, hitting the knight, and then if the knight moves, take the bishop. That would be an inaccurate way of playing, so I play bishop to c7, which is more precise. Pawn to a5, trying to get the pieces out, but unfortunately it's too late. Knight takes c8, rook takes c8, b7, rook moves, and I queen, and at the end of this, my opponent resigns because he is down 2 full bishops. But I thought this was a really cool game and really showed how I got compensation from giving up an exchange. Although a takes b4 is definitely not the best move here, rook to b1 would have been better. This led to a very, very interesting game, and I got a pretty dominant position despite being down material. So I thought this was a cool game, and hopefully it was instructive, and I'll see you guys next time.